Hey guys, it's Aman
And Christina
from
Our
Our
Rich Journey.
This video is all about how to afford to live in an expensive city. So Christina and I have lived in San Francisco, Oakland, Los Angeles, and San Diego. These are very expensive cities. And the tips that we're going to share with you today are some of the things that we've done, not only just to save money, but to also get ahead so that we can move closer to financial independence. So the first thing we want to start with is housing, because that can be your number one expense when you live in the city.
That's right. Now, housing, before you even look for housing, the most important thing is your credit score. And that this is even if you're buying a property or if you're renting a property, because banks and homeowners are going to be looking at your credit score. So the number one thing is optimize your credit score. There are a number of ways to increase your credit score. The number one way to increase it quickly is to focus on your credit utilization ratio. Now, we've already made a video on this, but if you watch that video, you'll see that credit utilization ratio makes up 30% of your credit score. So you really want to focus on that in order to optimize your credit. Now that we've got credit out of the way, the next thing you want to focus on is whether you can rent or buy. And this, of course, is if you have both options available to you. But you really want to do a rent versus buy cost analysis to see which one will save you the most money. A lot of people assume that buying a house is more beneficial, but that's not always the case. So make sure you do the analysis before you decide on your housing.
So let's assume that you've decided to rent. You found that that's more feasible. What you want to do is focus on units that have rent control. Now, rent control is probably in every major city because what it does is it protects you as a renter from your landlord coming through the next year and saying, I'm increasing your rent by 20, 30, 50%. Usually rent control caps the amount that your rent can increase.
So the best way to determine where you should live is by starting at the city ordinances for where you're going to live. City ordinances will define rent control and they'll define the areas that are rent controlled. So it can be by zoning, it can be by specific housing type like a condo versus a house or new construction versus old construction. It's very important to look at the city ordinance.
So once you're ready to start the rental process, one thing you need to be is prepared. You should have all of your documentation in order. So have a copy of your credit report with you, have the rental application ready to go, and be prepared to tell the landlord when you can move in. These are all really important things because competition in a city for rental property is very, very fierce. Another tip to actually saving money on your rent is offer to pay your rent in advance. And by offering to pay in advance, ask for a discount by doing so.
You can also look for other discounts. So we're going to get into transportation next, but if you have a unit that has open parking spots and you don't have a vehicle, you can negotiate with your landlord to have your landlord either rent out the parking spots or you can rent out the parking spots for a decrease in your rent.
Your next expense in a city is transportation. And if you are going to live in any major city, try to avoid owning a car. It is a serious headache. But moreover, there are far better options than owning a car in the city. Usually public transportation is stellar in most cities. There are also a lot of ride-sharing opportunities in cities. Of course, there's Uber and there's Lyft, but there's also something called Zipcar or other car share platforms where you can borrow a car whenever you need it.
The next way to save in a big city is saving on entertainment. Now, a lot of people like to live right in the heart of the city because they love the vibrance and the entertainment, the nightlife that's associated with the city. But you can save on entertainment by taking advantage of all the free opportunities related to entertainment in a big city. For example, if you really like going to concerts, there's this really great organization called Rock Corps. And what it does is you volunteer 4 hours of your time in the local community. In exchange for that, you get a free ticket to one of their concerts. And these aren't low budget concerts. These are big names that perform at these concerts. They've had Kanye West, Lauryn Hill, Maroon 5, just a whole group of very talented, like big name performers. And all you have to do is volunteer 4 hours of your time and you get a free ticket.
So yeah, this idea of volunteering and in exchange being able to attend an event for free, I witnessed this personally when we lived in San Diego and the Super Bowl came to San Diego. We had friends that volunteered to help set up the halftime show at the Super Bowl, and in exchange, they got to go to the Super Bowl for free.
Now, if you're not into sports or concerts, of course, big cities are also known for their museums. And on certain days or certain hours of the day, they have free openings to the public. So there's a site called freemuseumday.org, and you can look at that site and it will tell you all of the different museums in large cities and when they have free openings.
So the next area of savings is on food. Now, we don't eat out a lot, but when you live in a big city, you do like to go out with your friends and enjoy yourself. So one of the ways that we always saved money was focusing on going out for happy hours. Now, happy hours, there are tons of them going on throughout any city. So focus your get-togethers around those happy hours.
And the next savings area is on health and wellness. Now, in big cities, you can generally find a lot of free fitness clubs. They have free running clubs, even free yoga classes that you can take in the big cities. For example, Lululemon offers weekly yoga classes in big cities for free. Let's talk about dental work and haircuts. Now, one of the great things about living in a big city is that there's usually a big university or at least a lot of different trade schools available at that city. And one of the things because of this is that you can get very cheap or even free dental work or haircuts from students that are going to these schools. So our last thing is not actually about saving money, but it's about making money through side hustles. Now, one of the great things about living in a big city is that there are a lot of opportunities to get very lucrative side hustles going.
Yeah, so one of our favorite side hustles was Airbnb. When we lived in the Bay Area, we did Airbnb with some of our units. But something else that is really special about Airbnb is you can do something called experiences. This is where you basically act as a tour guide in certain situations, or you show people maybe how to cook or do art. Whatever it is that you have a skill or a passion for, you can do as an Airbnb experience.
And a lot of tourists are looking to go to a city on vacation and get a really authentic feel. So if you're offering certain tours or different classes that really align with the city that you live in, you can make a lot of money by doing that.
So that's just the side hustle. And I mean, there are a number of side hustles that you can do in a city. We can go on and on. Take a look at some of our previous videos where we talk about doing things like Turo, like Rover, just a number of side hustles. But there's something else that's really special that you can do in a city. And it's related to Airbnb, but it's something that you need to work out with your landlord. And it is renting your place when large events come to the city, just to kind of subsidize the rent payments that you're already making.
So how this works is when there's a big event in the city, like a sports event or a concert, anything big that's drawing a lot of tourists to the city, you want to leave the city during that time, and you want to rent out your unit for that specific week or weekend.
So just renting your place on Airbnb a couple times a year can generate a significant amount of money.
Of course, if you're renting, you want to make sure that you check your lease to make sure that it allows for subletting. And if it doesn't, you can always negotiate with your landlord to allow for subletting on specific times of the year. But if you do that, make sure you get it in writing. Now, if you own property, you can pretty much do it whenever you want. But of course, in any circumstance, when you're renting or you're owning, you always want to make sure that you check the city ordinances to make sure that there's no restrictions on doing that.
So those are our tips for living in a big city. Now, there are a number of other things that you may come up with, and if you have more thoughts, please leave them in the comments down below. But if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and
Join the journey.